Go away, Kodak. Games that time forgot. Duke Nukem Forever. Yeah, long-standing subscribers of this channel may remember this one well. The legacy of this game is that it was originally set to release as the 3D version of the Duke Nukem franchise on the 5th generation of consoles. Yeah, 15 years later it was eventually released on the 7th generation of consoles, the PS3 and the Xbox 360, a victim of what Scott DeWaz has dubbed development hell. But it did eventually release. To a not so great reception. So today we once again dive into my old archive as we explore this heinous excuse of a game. Yeah, take it away 2022 and slightly more posh sounding kebabs. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing with my accent back then. Duke Nukem is an iconic, but often forgotten character in gaming. He basically embodies all the stereotypes of a gun-loving, muscular, womanizing American roid sex junkie, and oh boy does this intro tell you that with enough boobs and bazookas to get you stopped by security at least once. Jumping into the game itself, and we see a guy pissing. Duke proceeds to piss before venturing to talk to some guys, draws a wiener, and fight a big alien before we realise that this is in fact a game that Duke Nukem is playing whilst receiving stuff from what Dave Chappelle would describe as
a fallacious woman.
Through a TV broadcast, we learn of an alien invasion, but fuck that, this place is a pool table. So we go into a game show, Earth gets attacked by aliens, and yada yada yada. That's essentially the plot. Duke fighting back the forces of this alien, whatever, and eventually defeating them. Is it a good plot? Well, no, but also yes. It's not exactly the focus here, so it doesn't matter a huge amount. Just remember the two Bs. The game, of course, focuses on Duke Nukem, and he's interesting.
Looks like those alien bastards drank all my beer.
See, Duke Nukem was created in an era when this sort of humor was the norm. It's not exactly bad, but it was definitely aged in 2010, and even more so now in 2022. I can get behind some of the jokes, but a lot of them are simply puns about how big his package is.
Size only matters when you're full grown, baby.
Or how he'll kick an alien's ass.
Yeah, more equipment means more ass kicking.
Now, if I was a 40-year-old trucker from South Carolina, I would indeed love this sort of humour. But like a lot of people nowadays, I like something a lot classier. Like Live at the Apollo, or Top 10 Football Fails, laughing face emoji, laughing face emoji, laughing face emoji, laughing face emoji. Right, enough about a character that would 100% get cancelled these days. What about the game itself? Duke Nukem Forever is a first-person shooter, and a very basic one at that. Before I criticise the gameplay, there is a few positives. I like how there are a lot of things you can do that don't exactly involve combat, trivial things like pinball or pool, but still fun nonetheless. There's plenty to mess around with like whiteboards or urinals, and the game has a decent level of difficulty. I only played on normal difficulty, but it still struck a decent balance of being challenging, but also not being overly easy at the same time. And now the bad. Gunplay in this game doesn't exactly feel great. Forever is similar to a lot of linear first-person shooters, with a small arsenal of weapons and abilities that are slowly given to you as you advance through the game, whether it be workhorses like the shotgun or railgun, or more trivial ones like the shrink ray or freeze ray, alongside abilities like steroids and beer, which turn Duke into a raged roid head with a hard-on for beating anything in sight into a pulp. Now, the basic gameplay isn't boring per se, but it's not exactly anything special. The same can be said for the game's enemies, aliens. There is a variety of them, from the pig cops that charge you down, to these Captain Alien guys that teleport, and then of course the bosses at the end of many levels. However, I'd still argue something like Doom does this a lot better, but the only thing I really can praise is the humorous takedowns of bosses after you defeat them, which can involve either turning their eye into a football, or punching them in the balls. The levels in this game are not exactly great either. They're incredibly linear, and offers little options for a player to pick and choose how he'll approach an engagement. But even with this linearity, it's still pretty easy to get lost over what you're meant to do in a level. Although I also had this problem with BioShock, so it could just be my lack of brain power. The levels have some interesting settings in some areas, such as a casino or Duke Burger, but a lot of them are just construction site, dam, that one level from Halo 3 but with 10 times the finger action. The majority of levels are also simply one level split into 3, when in reality you won't be playing this game for longer than 10 hours. Because of that, this of course means many loading screens. The game graphically it kind of looks like shit. Not exactly, but this game suffers from the curse of, let's make everything a shade of brown or grey. Something surprisingly prevalent in a lot of 360 games. Character models are noticeably plastic looking, things in the near distance appear pixelated, and the lighting is pretty terrible. Not exactly the worst looking game of this era, but far from the best either. Alongside this, the game did it many times, especially during boss battles and areas with a lot of explosives, have noticeable drops in frame rate. Not a huge deal, but kinda reflective of the lack of polish this game has. Many levels also include driving sections and puzzles. Not exactly difficult ones, as you do have to play this game with at least 5 beers in you to truly appreciate what it is, so the puzzles are of course designed for someone who's drunk. The driving sections are quite fun, but also incredibly linear and on rails, and kinda just feel shoehorned in to transition between areas. But to make them more fun, just engage your inner American and throw on some Guns N' Roses. This game also tries to shoehorn in platforming sections, often including the ability to shrink Duke down, which I do think is a decent gameplay mechanic, and some of these sections are some of the best sections in the game, although I do feel as if the controls for Duke Nukem weren't exactly designed with platforming in mind, so it does feel quite clunky. Right, what else have we got? This game did have a multiplayer. I say did because even though it is still online, there isn't a single player playing this. But from the looks of it, it just seems like our usual Quake/Unreal Tournament style of multiplayer. The problem with Duke Nukem Forever is the game is very much focused on him. Without him, it's basically just a Doom or Wolfenstein, but worse in every single aspect. Duke Nukem thrived in the 90s, but also died in the 90s. A time where you can make a joke about and not get cancelled. Is it terrible? No, but it's kind of a chore to play, and to me, that's one of the worst things a game could do. As I've said before, I've no problem with playing a terrible game, as long as I can find some sort of fun in it. Duke Nukem Forever doesn't have a story compelling enough to make up for its lack of substance. I'm not exactly a huge fan of the Duke Nukem character himself, and overall, I didn't exactly enjoy this game as a whole, besides a few sporadic moments. So yeah, in a roundabout way, it is quite terrible. Right, thank you, past me. So, Duke Nukem Forever. Yeah, it's not as bad as people remember. Yeah, it's still not particularly great, but it's kind of an interesting gaming nugget. Of course, if you did get to this point of the video, thank you for watching. Comment below your thoughts on this game, or just your thoughts on the video in general. And of course, as always, subscribe for more.